Guys, all the cars that you see in these videos are for sale on my website, www.woodsandbarclay.com. Enjoy the video. Hey, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to get the 85 300D up on the lift, and I went ahead and picked up some new brake hoses for all four corners and some new ball joints. So we're going to go ahead and knock that out in this video, and then in the next video we're going to do fluids, filters, full service. I'm also going to remove the original wheels and tires so we can preserve them. I'm going to set them aside, and I've ordered some replacement tires and another set of wheels that I have here in the shop that we're going to put back on the car. And so the original wheels and tires can be used for like car shows or something like that, but you don't want to drive around on 40-year-old tires. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Now, I am going to put on a different set of bunts, and you may ask, why don't I just keep these nice original ones on the car? Well, I want to keep this original tire on the wheel, because if you try to unmount an original 40-year-old tire, there's a good chance that the rubber could rip. So we don't want to risk doing that. We want to save this so this can go back on the car at any point in time. Guys, check out the condition of the original hub and dust cover. They still have the semi-gloss paint on them. That just looks remarkable. And obviously the rotors are perfect condition. They only have 10,000 miles on them. And these are the original Bendix brakes. Mercedes would use ATE or Bendix, and this car got the Bendix. Easy way to tell is the Bendix have these little cotter pins that you pull out in order to release the pins that pull out the pads. The ATE does it a little bit different. So let me go ahead and get the rest of these wheels off, and then we're going to start on the ball joint replacement. One of the reasons these wheels look so amazing, the customer opted for the dust shields. See the dust shields that are installed in there? And you can see them through the holes here. It's that black shield here. It's white on the back. But those are brake dust shields. Okay, I have all the beautiful original bunts and original tires sitting over here. These are, I would say, flawless original condition with the original Continentals. So we'll set those aside for now. Okay, the procedure for changing these ball joints is just a few steps. We'll remove our brake caliper, and that is two 19 millimeters right back here, one here and here. And then we want to disconnect our tie rod from the back of the steering knuckle. Here's the steering knuckle right here. It goes up to your upper control arm. And those are also 19 millimeter. We'll move that out of the way. And then we want to pop off our dust or grease cap right here and undo our spindle nut. And we will remove the rotor. And then lastly, we'll remove the dust shield and then undo our 17 millimeter nut here. And that will make the steering knuckle free to then detach the lower ball joint. So let's get started. Okay, first we'll come in here and remove, this is the tie rod arm that connects it to the steering knuckle. All right, so we take that off, and then that can just kind of swing out of the way there. We'll just put it like that. And that basically then frees up. See, our steering knuckle is now no longer connected to the steering system. And we're just taking off our caliper, two 19 millimeters. And keep in mind, guys, we're changing the brake hoses. So it's okay for me to hang this caliper by the brake hose because we're changing the brake hose. So we'll pull off that caliper and we will just let it hang right here. Now, normally you wouldn't want to do that if that was the brake hose you were keeping, because you don't want to stress the brake hose. But we're changing all the brake hoses because these are 40 years old. And yeah, you do not want a 40-year-old brake hose on your car. That's dangerous. All right, so here's where we're at. See, the steering knuckle is now free to move around. There's our ball joint right there, and there's our ball joint nut. So first, to get access to the nut and to break the ball joint loose, we need to remove the dust shield, the rotor, the grease cap, the rotor, and the dust shield, and then we'll attack the top nut up here. One more good little whack, and it's gonna pop off. Oh, there we go. All right. Now it looks like this was actually already re-greased at some point. See, there's two different color greases. There's the original, the yellow stuff. And so that was good. He actually serviced the bearings and repacked them with grease. That's fantastic. All right, so what we want to do, we're going to put fresh grease in there. We're going to wipe away some of this grease so we can see what we're doing here. And there we go. So this is your radio interference pin. I think they put these little copper pins here for AM radio. And underneath that, you have your spindle nut. There we go. That's just a lock screw or a lock nut. There you go. Now we can turn the spindle nut by hand. This is what holds your, it's basically holds your wheel on, or holds your hub to the vehicle. Yeah, it's that simple. So we're going to unscrew that, and then we can get access to remove the hub, outer bearing, inner bearing, and rotor. Wow, look at that. That looks factory brand new. Still has the zinc plating on the little nuts that hold this. This is your brake dust shield. So, and I see it's been nicely greased. There's plenty of grease on there. So let's go ahead and get these three out and remove the dust shield, and that will expose the ball joint. All right, we got all these out. Let's go ahead and take off our dust shield. And now what we're left with here, that's our steering knuckle. Now the last thing we want to do is remove our nut that holds the upper control arm, and the shock will actually retain the spring because this is connecting the lower control arm and the upper control arm, but this shock is in good shape. I see the bolts down here are mounted good. It's nice and firm, so that's going to hold that spring in there when we undo this. This is just a 17 millimeter. All right, that's now disconnected, but we need to break that ball joint loose from the spindle because it's a tapered fit, so it's not moving at all. Let me get the ball joint separator. Okay, here's our ball joint separator. Now, we don't want to break this boot, right? So I'll put some grease on the part that goes under the boot here. So it'll slip under that boot real easy without damaging it. There we go. We put this is just a little helper, little spacer I stick in right here. There it goes. All right, see how it is now loose? And okay, what I did on the other side of the car, you can see there's a jack stand there. The jack stand is under the lower control arm. So now I'm going to lower the car onto that jack stand, and that sway bar goes through the car and is connected to the other side. And when I lower the car, it's going to push up on that sway bar and give us clearance to take that out. So watch. And now we can then, there we go, pull our steering knuckle out. And now that we have our steering knuckle detached, I can spin it around, and that's what we want to replace. See that nasty old boot that's deteriorated? That's what we're going to get out of there. First, I just want to point out the amazing condition of this steering knuckle. All the original paint is on there, guys. And if you watch some of my other videos, you'll see how I always clean these up and refinish them in the original black because it's always worn off and this is always crusty, and this looks like perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and remove our ball joint nut. There we go. Now we need one more specialty tool to separate the ball joint from the lower control arm. Here we go. This is a ball joint separator, or can also be used for a small Pitman arm puller. But we just run this out here like that, and then this little like horseshoe area clips around the lower control arm, and this spike presses on the top of the ball joint, and it presses it through the lower control arm. So it goes around there. Let's see. Man, that thing was in there. But there we go. Now we have our spindle removed from the car, and we can go knock out this old ball joint and install a brand new ball joint. All right, normally how you remove the ball joint, you put the spindle in a vise, and then you hit it with a big slug and a 5-pound hammer, and you actually knock it out. But Frank Villasenor out in California made me this really cool contraption. And this is, it attaches to my vise, and I can put the spindle or the steering knuckle in here and actually press out the ball joint. I'll show you guys how it works. There we go. We have a press here. We're just going to press that ball joint straight through. And there we go. Now we just press it out. There it goes. Voila, there's the old ball joint. So let's go ahead and press in our new ball joint. Okay, to press in a ball joint, we need another specialty tool. And here we go. This is the 123, 126 ball joint press. This is made by KC or Komen Tools, MBA1036, Komen Tools, if anybody needs to order it. So we'll go ahead and take out our new ball joint. I use Linforder ball joints. There we go. And then we put our tool over the ball joint, and it goes onto the ball joint lip. And then we just align that under our hydraulic press, and we will press in. It's a press fit. Okay, and there we go. Now let me zoom in so you guys can see the ball joint going in. Okay, there you go. You can see the little knurls on the ball joint. Those looks like little teeth, and the press is going to press those down into the spindle. See them going down in there? There it goes. It just bottomed out. And there we have it, a perfectly pressed in ball joint, perfectly flush around the bottom. All right, let's get this back in the car. All right, we are supplied with a new ball joint nut. And we're just going to stick this into the lower control arm and then thread our nut onto here. And then we have to tighten our nut down. There we go, that's how I do that. I put a jack under there, put just a little pressure on it, and that holds it into the lower control arm. And then I can come back here and tighten the nut down. So let me go ahead and get that thing tightened down. All right, now I need to get the torque wrench on there and do a final tightening. Ball joint into our new lower control arm. There we go. Now we put our nut back on there. And then I need to torque that down, and then we can start reassembly. So guys, I told Scott about the 10,000 mile 300D, and he insisted on coming over and seeing it and starting working on it. And the first thing he wanted me to do is remove the little flares so he could buff and polish under under the fender flares. So I guess they are going to come off after all, but again, I will put them in the trunk so they can be reinstalled. But Scott insisted they have to come off to clean underneath them.
Yeah.
What do you think about this car, Scott? Ooh, that looks nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
It's never been gone over or gone through. So once that happens, I mean, it'll look fresh off the showroom floor.
So I'm taking all those off so you can clean underneath them. And then what's your plan for, the overall rest of the car? I don't think we should sand it because I want to keep that original finish.
I'm not going to take it down with 1000 grit, but I'll probably go over it with Trizact.
Guys, we're not going to sand it because we want to preserve how the original finish is. And like I said, if you sand a car, it makes them actually nicer than what they looked like when they came from Mercedes. And right now he's just got his polisher, and he's starting by removing all the trim and polishing underneath before we reinstall it. And I might just let the next owner reinstall it. Okay, while Scott is back there working on that one, I'll disassemble these later so we can get under here. But over here I have here's the new brake hoses. There's the front here, there's the rear, and the other ball joint. So let's go ahead and get back to assembling everything back together, and we will put our new brake line or brake hose on the driver's side here. Okay, we're just doing this reassembly, and I went ahead and put a little grease here. Blue Loctite went on these dust shield bolts, and I also repacked our outer bearing. You can see the red grease on there. Repacked this outer bearing and put a little more grease in here just to freshen it up. And we're just going to put on our spindle nut now, and then we'll move over to the brakes and start changing brake hoses. Now, when you put on a spindle nut, you want to put them on hand tight, and you just want to get the play out. You don't want to crank these down because then your bearings will not be able to operate correctly. So, see, we've got play in it there. So I'll tighten it down. There we go. That's where we want it right there. Now we'll go ahead and tighten down our lock screw here, and that makes it where it can no longer move. And then we're going to put back in our little copper pin that goes in the end. That's like the radio interference pin. There we go. Now Mercedes says to put some grease in the dust cap. So I wiped out that old grease. It wasn't really in bad condition, but we're just going to go ahead, put some grease in our cap here. There we go. We got some grease in the cap, and we'll put this back on here and tap it on with a rubber mallet. All right, there we go. Let's wipe off the excess grease. And there we go. That's reinstalled. Okay, before we change this brake hose, what I want to do is remove the brake pad wear sensor from the caliper, because we're going to disconnect our caliper from the old hose. And that's just a 10 millimeter. And then that comes out. There we go, little 10 millimeter screw. And then we can take our wear pad sensors out of here, and we'll just let this hang right here. And now I want to, before I've got the caliper temporarily on here, so I can get a wrench on here, a 14 millimeter, and loosen this hose before I remove the caliper again. And we're just going to stick our 14 millimeter up here and break that loose. There we go. It's much easier to break it loose when it's mounted on the car. Okay, good. That's loose. Now we can go ahead and remove that caliper again. I'll just take I just had those in there hand tight to hold it still. Okay, we just loosened that, but not enough to undo it. And then our brake pad wear sensor, that's just hanging out of the way. So what I want to do now is we want to crack the line loose, and we're going to completely remove that brake line and put on our new line. Now the new line, I've got a cap on it so it won't drain all the fluid out. So we'll quickly connect it, and then we can undo our caliper and connect it to the new line. All right. Put our 11 millimeter on here. This is a line wrench. See how it curves around like that? That gives you maximum grip. There we go. That came off really, really easy. All right, there we go. So let's get our new line now. And we'll put it right up in here. There we go. And screw it in there. And there we go. We lost minimum fluid doing that. Now, I'll go ahead and tighten this down a little. All right. So now let's go ahead and get our caliper. We'll take our cap off and we'll spin our new caliper on there. There we go. I'll just put a thumb over it to hold the brake fluid in there. And we got to get our caliper back on here. There we go. And just get the threads to start. There we go. And we barely lost any brake fluid doing it that way. And of course, I'll put brake cleaner on here and wipe off all the fluid. All right, we got some brake cleaner on here. Let's go ahead and wipe off all that brake fluid. All right, now let's go ahead and put our bolts back in the back of our caliper and get our lines tightened down. All right, let me go in and wipe off some of that fluid back here. That's good. Now we need to put some blue Loctite on the bolts before we put the bolts back in there. And you can see we got a little dab of blue Loctite on there. So we'll just get these started. There we go. All right, let me torque those down. And well, I guess before I do that, we can go ahead and wipe off our brake pad wear sensor here. There we go. And we'll plug these guys back in. There we go. Just want to make sure you get brake fluid off of everything, because brake fluid is pretty corrosive. That's why I'm spending so much time wiping it off of here. All right, there we go. All right, let's go ahead and torque these down. Then we're going to tighten with our 14 millimeter, tighten down our new brake hose to the caliper. Okay, we got our brake hose tightened down. Next thing we want to do is put our tie rod arm back on the back of the steering knuckle. And we have blue Loctite we've applied to these. And we just get that up here. All right, we'll get the torque wrench and finish those off. Okay, we are done with the driver's side. There's our fresh brake hose in there. That's taken care of. And if we go around back, you can see the brand new ball joint, and the boot is no longer torn. That's a new ball joint. So now we need to go over here and knock out the passenger side. I won't record that because that's the same exact process. And then we'll go to the rear of the car and change the brake hoses on the rear. Okay, we are done on the passenger side. Brand new brake hose installed. And if we go around back, a beautiful brand new ball joint. So that completes the work we have done on the front end. Ball joints on both sides and brake hoses. Now I'll show you how to do one of the brake hoses on the back. Then we'll knock out the other side and we'll get the new wheels and tires on here. Okay, here we are at the rear of the car. We're on the driver's side. And the rear hoses are even easier to change than the front hoses. First, we just want to go back here. And we're just going to go ahead and break this loose. There we go. There we go. That's loose. That makes it, when you do that, it makes it easier to remove it once you take the caliper off the car. And here we got the 11 millimeter. I'll just crack a line loose up here. There we go. There we go. That is loose. All right, let's go ahead and get this caliper off of here. All right, now we're going to go ahead and detach the line from the top, just like we did on the front. And we have our new ATE brake hose with our cap on the end. All right, as soon as it's disconnected, stick our new hose right up in there. And there we go, guys. It's as easy as that. And you barely spill any fluid when you do it this way. And drop that on the ground. And there we go. Let's see how fast we can get it on here. Look at that. Barely lost any fluid. All right, of course I want to clean everything up with some brake cleaner. And let's get it reattached. All right, so what I like to do too, see how this is twisted around here? I like to make sure once I get this reinstalled, the caliper reinstalled, I like to loosen it a little here and make sure this is untwisted and it's just a smooth bend. Now when I go to tighten this down, it's going to start twisting our hose, and you want to make sure you get the twists out of the hose. Actually, we got it pretty good there. I turned it around enough. All right, that's tight. And yeah, I still want to get that twist out a little bit. So, there we go. See how nice and straight that is, or how nice the curve is? That's how you want it. I see tons of mechanics put them on here and they're all twisted, and that's just, guys, that's so amateur. It's not the right way to do things. All right, there we go. Now we'll wipe that off. Let me get some brake cleaner. We'll wipe this off, and then we'll get some blue Loctite and reattach our bolts on the caliper. It's important. The Germans used Loctite on their caliper bolts. So you just want to put a little bead on there before you torque them down. Okay, easy enough. There's our new brake line installed. And we don't have that 40-year-old rubber hose on there anymore. You definitely want to do this on your cars, guys. And most of these cars do have the original brake hoses. That's a dangerous thing to have on your car. If that ruptures, you lose your brakes. All right, let me go ahead and knock out this side, and then we will bleed the system and get all the old fluid out. Okay, we're done over here on the passenger side. Got the new hose in. Now, guys, I'm going to show you an easy way to bleed your brake system at home, you know, on jack stands. Sure, I have fancy pressure bleeding equipment where I can pressurize the system and bleed it out. But I'm just going to show you the simple gravity bleed method. And this is for all you, do-it-yourselfers. If you just need to flush out your fluid, this is an easy way to do it. So let me show you. Okay, guys, you can see I have 4 little paint cups. That's for just, cups you can get at your paint store for mixing up paint. You can use whatever you want. And I have them directly under each caliper. Now, let's go ahead and lower the car down. Okay, let's go ahead and take our master reservoir cap off here. And let's go ahead and fill up the master reservoir like all the way up with fresh fluid. We're going to mix it with the dirty. It's okay. But then we're going to crack those bleeders and let it gravity bleed all that out. And when it gets down really low, we're going to pour in more fresh fluid. And eventually that's going to get all the old fluid out of there. All right, here's our brake fluid. We're going to go ahead and top it off all the way up to the top. You see it fills up the rear reservoir first, and then that trickles over like a little firewall in there into the front reservoir. There it goes. Okay. There we go. That's full. Now let's start the gravity bleed process. Okay, I started by removing the little rubber cap that's on our bleeder. And we're just going to stick I think this is a 9mm, and crack our bleeder loose. There we go. All right, there we go. See, it just started dripping right into our cup. All right, let's go ahead and do the other side. And all that fluid in the reservoir, it's higher. See, the reservoir is way up there. It's going to push all this fluid out of our calipers. All right, let's get this one. There we go. All right, that one's now dripping. Let's go do the fronts. There we go. Get that on there. There we go. That one's now dripping. All right, here we are with the last one here. Crack this one loose. There we go. Now that's dripping in our cup right there. So what's going to happen, gravity is going to pull all of our fluid down as it slowly drips out. And when we see it start to get all the way down to the bottom, not all the way to the master reservoir, you don't want it to go empty, just like down to your minimum line right here, go ahead and fill it with fresh fluid. And it's going to slowly start pushing all the fluid through until you have all new fresh fluid in the system. Okay, there we have all the nasty old fluid. I consolidated all the containers into one. And I'll show you the reservoir now. Get my light. Now you can see how we have, there we go, we have clear fluid in there now. And there's a little staining back there from where that old fluid had been sitting. But you can see now we have all fresh fluid. So that is the easy way to gravity bleed, do it yourself at home. And the last thing you want to do, you want to put the caps back on all your calipers and then wipe off the back with some brake cleaner. Okay, the next thing we want to do is put on our new wheels and tires. And I just got these back from powder coating and then the tire shop, because like I said, we're preserving those original wheels and tires. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put on our wheels. And I like this little tool here. It basically allows you to locate the wheel so the holes line up easy. All right, we have the beautiful new wheels and new tires on. Now let's go ahead and put on our center caps. Okay, we just got our new center caps in from Mercedes, 107-400-0025. That's a 107 part, but it's the same exact part for the 123 300D, or any of the 123s. You can see, brand new, genuine Mercedes. So let's go ahead and get these on the car. Installing these is pretty easy. It's got a spring-loaded clip right behind it. And you just push them on there. And there we go. Perfect. Okay, I'm done. I put all the new center caps on all of the wheels. So that's it for this video. We did the ball joints, brake hoses, put on the new wheels and tires, and center caps. The next video, I'm going to do general service. I'm going to do all the fluids, filters. We're going to do a valve adjustment, valve cover gasket. So stay tuned, and that video will be next. See you next time.